Today I'd like to talk with you about conflict. Whether you have clashed with someone at work, argued with a family member, a neighbour over the fence, a telemarketer, or all of the above, conflict is something we have all been through. My expertise is in helping organisations navigate and deal with crisis and conflict, and I have seen the devastating impacts it has when conflict is left unaddressed and it lives on as an undercurrent impacting people's confidence and ability to turn up and do the job that gives them meaning. So you've been in a situation many times, I imagine, where you have felt overtaken by conflict. And what happens? There's a stress response, a little bit we've already heard about today, the heart rate goes up and so on. And you're not acting the way you actually want to act. Maybe you fight like an angry lion, avoid conflict at all costs like a timid puppy, freeze like a rabbit in the headlights, or fawn by overly trying to smooth things over and please people. The quote from Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see," comes to mind because if we want to reduce the conflict and division that we see in our communities and in our world, then the thing we can do within our own control is to become better at dealing with conflict, better at staying connected when things get hard. So, how do we do that? We can turn to the wisdom of the martial arts. No, I don't mean we're going to be karate chopping a block of wood at our next meeting, but let's look at 3 powerful principles from the Japanese martial art Aikido that I'll share with you today and that you can apply to a conflict in your own life. I grew up in a town in rural Victoria. Racism, conflict, sexism, homophobia, aggression were pretty common there. When there was a fight at school, people would be asking, who won? Who came out worse? Violence, social or physical, seemed to be all around us. I have another memory of that time, my grade 6 teacher, Miss M. She called herself a pacifist and she had an Amnesty International sticker on her little yellow hatchback. She was a powerful combination for a class of grade 6s of loving, funny, quick to pull us into line. She was harsh but fair. Miss M really sparked my interest in leaders like Gandhi who met conflict, met overpowering with non-violence, who advocated for greater connection between people in our diverse world. The founder of Aikido is Morihei Ueshiba, known as O-Sensei. He was a renowned master of multiple Japanese martial arts, a real weapon himself. After witnessing the devastation and brutality of war, it's thought that his experience contributed to him developing Aikido as a new martial art, which served to protect and nurture life, not to harm it. So one translation of Aikido is the way of harmony. And I was drawn to it. I didn't know much about it, but there was something about the philosophy. There was something about it being a relatively harmonious way to do self-defense that I signed up to learn Aikido. And when you do Aikido, you often practice in pairs. Someone will attack you, maybe they'll throw a punch or grab your wrist, and your job as a defender is to neutralise their attack without harming them. For example, you might step off the line, which unbalances them, and then you throw them in the direction of their momentum, or you might create a joint lock and pin them to the ground to neutralise the situation. During an early evening Aikido session, I was learning how to neutralise attacks, practising it over and over again, and I also had to attack myself and practice that. And I was falling down and getting up again, falling down, getting up again. And I was too afraid to even throw a proper punch at that time. I really didn't want to hurt anyone. And Sensei Craig comes up to me and he says, "Jess, when there's a punch coming at you, there is only one place in the world you don't want to be, and that is where that punch is about to land." And he said it in his lovely, warm, encouraging way that Sensei Craig would. At this time, I was working in a hospital. My role, I was sometimes being called in to mediate heated discussions, deal with some truly devastating crisis situations as well. And people had been flattened by emotion. Sometimes verbal punches would be flying. My job was to help support the situation to its best possible resolution at that time. And I remember after one particularly intense debrief, a senior leader came up to me and she said, "Jess, how did you do that? How did you stay so calm?" And what I was learning in the dojo was, redirecting these negative attacks was starting to show up in how I was redirecting emotion at work. Now, after almost 10 years of precious experiences learning from masters of Aikido in 4 continents, I created the Travelling Dojo to start telling the story of what I was learning, and Aikido highly informs my work as a conflict and crisis specialist. And it's not only in my field that Aikido is being very drawn upon, systems engineering, training of horses, international relations academics. Why are they talking about Aikido? Why is it having an impact? Because unlike most martial arts, Aikido doesn't block. It's not about hitting back. It's about saying, hey, let's sort this out without anyone getting hurt. And it provides a very different way of thinking. So, I wanted to bring to you 3 principles from what I've learned that I thought might be helpful for you today to think about in relation to a conflict in your life. Please bring to mind something that's going on for you. It could be at work, it could be in another relationship that's just unsettling you a little bit at this time. And you're going to listen to the 3 principles with this in mind and just see what you might take from them. Principle 1, show up, but don't overdo it. In Aikido, it's actually often, we're taught it's safer to enter into a conflict than to run away. So showing up is one of the very first things we learn how to do. But also overdoing it, we learn to avoid wasting energy. We learn to deal with attacks without overdoing it, being efficient as best we can. So Ryan, one of my teachers, one morning he went to his usual morning coffee stop and he received a really bad coffee. And he walked out and he thought his gut reaction, it was to feel annoyed. He didn't want to drink the coffee and he thought, I'm not going back to that shop ever again. But he knew that that was a lose-lose situation. The staff would never know they'd given him a bad coffee. He would not get to go back to his favourite morning coffee shop. So I think maybe many of us have had a situation like that. What do I do? Do I stand up to this, bad coffee or whatever it might be? Yeah, he goes in and he just says this coffee isn't up to its usual standard, giving the staff a chance to make it right. Now, in the contrast, someone might go in after receiving a bad coffee, demand a refund, be a bit angry about it, leave themselves unsettled, leave the staff unsettled and possibly resistant towards each other in the future. They might leave an online review. All of this effort, all of this overdoing it to respond to just one bad coffee. But either way, whether someone avoids conflict or overdoes it, the short and long-term result looks worse. So we need to find that balance. Ryan shared this story because he had been talking to a psychologist about needing to get better at not avoiding conflict. But how do we help teams in workplaces when there's a whole team dynamic to get better at dealing with conflict? So one of the things I do is I facilitate experiential learning. And this is when you get a team together and you give them an experience and you intentionally put them under a bit of pressure so that they can see how they act and how they feel when they're under that kind of pressure, and they can learn things that they can take back to the workplace. And Aikido is really great for experiential learning, as you can imagine. It's about the body, which we've been hearing about today, as is equine facilitated learning. I had a team come to work with me from a bank. They came to work with me and my horses because they weren't getting along as well as they could be. And unfortunately, that's the case with many work teams, that they're not getting along as well as they could be. So this day of equine facilitated learning, I set up an exercise. Okay, you have this white horse, Jasmine, here. She's beautiful. You're going to lead her up over this small obstacle, very small, as a team, okay? Work together. And true to form, the manager comes up, grabs the lead rope and tries to drag Jasmine over the obstacle. Not connecting, overdoing it with force. You can see what's going on here. And the team are standing there like rabbits in the headlights, too afraid to suggest a better way because they're used to avoiding conflict with their manager. So we debriefed it. The team could see more easily the force and resistance issues going on, so they could go back to their workplace. The manager realising that she could take a little more time to connect, slow it down and hear the team, but the team also had to step up and not avoid conflict. So going back to your conflict, just think for a moment, are you more likely to avoid it? Is that the way you tend to go? Or to overdo it? Which brings us to principle 2, which is about non-resistance. Being non-resistant is not about yes to everything. It's not about being a pushover. It's about engaging without creating more tension. One of the things I do with teams is I help them feel when they're actually bringing excessive tension, excessive resistance into a tricky conversation, and how to regulate that, how to bring it down so that they can get to a point where they're having a clearer conversation and they can make better decisions. And importantly, partly why I do it, is to help with them trusting each other more. So imagine someone grabbing your wrist. All right, what might be your instinctual reaction? To push, to pull back, to hit? All of these approaches increase resistance, okay? So the wrist is trapped. One of the things we often forget if someone has your wrist is that the rest of your body is completely free to move. And unfortunately, due to how we're set up in our brains, we focus on the point of conflict. We get tense and we get stuck. And that also translates to when we're in a conflict with another person. Focusing on that point can reduce our chance to see what some other possibilities might be. So in the dojo, one of the first things we learn is if someone has our wrist, someone's standing there and they've grabbed my wrist, I pivot, have to relax this arm, pivot 180 degrees, I can see what they're seeing, and from here there are actually quite a lot of options in terms of how I try to resolve that situation. You can see the links to conflict in real life, I'm sure. So with non-resistance, just to finish that off, think about next time you are faced with that conflict, next time you're thinking about what am I going to do next in this situation, notice what happens if you can have a little less tension in your body and in your mind. Which brings us to principle 3, care for the other person and yourself. This is at the heart of my approach to Aikido and the heart of how I approach resolving conflicts in companies I work with around Australia. It's about staying connected to yourself and to the other person. I introduced Aikido as a Japanese martial art, and the philosophy that underpins Aikido travels right throughout Japanese culture and daily life, which is a very special thing. And when I see friends and family come home from Japan, they are touched and delighted by the sense of care and connection that they experience. I was recently on a Shinkansen, a bullet train, and in Japan, and I noticed that the conductor, when they entered and left the carriage, would bow, sending a signal of respect to those people around them. And while writing this talk in Japan, in Kyoto, I was in a cafe where the air conditioner was up really high, and I started a little cough and I had to put my jumper on, and within moments a hot cup of water arrived next to me, unasked, and the person working in the cafe had just noticed that that might be what I needed without me even knowing that's what I needed. This sense of care and connection is an absolutely beautiful experience on a daily basis in Japan. I was also lucky enough in Fukuoka to interview an Aikido master, Suganuma Sensei. I asked him what his advice would be to non-Aikido students. He said, care for the other person, don't overdo it, which really encapsulates what I'm bringing to you today. Point 1, in summary. And as I share this summary, please think about what you might want to take with you in the coming week in the conflict you are facing. Show up, but don't overdo it. Do you need to be a bit braver and lean into that conflict, or do you need to find a way to not overdo it? 2, Non-resistance. Can you relax a little more? Can you be the one that softens the blows during this conflict? 3, care for the other person and yourself. You know, you are in conflict and they might have your wrist, but you can move wherever you need to move. Apart from that point, you have a lot more options than you think. So, imagine being in a workplace that lives from those principles. Will you take one step towards less harm and more harmony? It won't mean the end of world conflict overnight, but it could mean peace for you. Thank you.